I want to talk about law firm valuation. The thing is that when you have a law firm, at some point you got to think about the firm. I mean, whether you're trying to sell the firm or you're trying to really maybe do a succession planning, or you're trying to just have a clear idea about how much your firm is actually worth on the market. I mean, you're working hard, your team is working hard, so it's important to actually pin a certain number on your firm. Okay, so law firm valuation is really important. Let me first define for you what law firm valuation really is, so you can clarify the whole concept. So, law firm valuation is actually the process of establishing the fair market value of a legal practice. Okay, so it comes down to setting a reasonable price for your law firm that you're actually comfortable with, but the value has to be actually fair. It has to be fair market value. Okay, so there are actually procedures to actually follow for you to really pin a certain number on your law firm. So there are different valuation approaches to actually let's say to actually gauge in your law firm. Okay, and some of those valuation approaches are actually pretty common than others. Okay, but it all depends on your firm, the sector it is in, but also the particulars of the law firm. I'll explain later on what I mean by that. Okay, and so you got to constantly think about not only your law firm valuation, but also how your actions, how your performance, how your revenue, how your reputation is affecting the law firm valuation. So law firm valuation is important for putting yourself in a good bargain position when you buy or sell a practice. So for sellers looking to retire from the practice of law, the valuation process will likely be an integral part of your retirement planning. Okay, it can also be, like I said a little earlier, it can also be integral to succession planning. Okay, so even in cases where a firm is not being sold or acquired, valuation could still be critical because you may need to determine the practice's value to secure loan financing, for example, or a new partner joining the firm may need this info for the purpose of buying into the practice. So we have a lot of I would say functional uses. Okay, it's also vital to remember that any of the scenarios that I just described for you could actually arise at unexpected times. You just never know. Okay, in this economy, things happen, and you gotta be ready. So, if you think about how to value a law firm, I want to give you a few valuation methods that can be very helpful for you. Okay, and I want to share with you five key valuation methods that you can use right now if you are listening to me and you're thinking about valuing your law firm. And so those five law firm valuation methods are they're not really complicated. You don't need to hire like a CPA, or you don't need to hire, let's say, a valuation expert to kind of walk you through unless you want to. You can actually value your own law firm yourself. Okay, so the first let's talk about the first valuation method. So it's a revenue based approach and the rule of thumb. So if you are trying to value your law firm this year, you can use the revenue based approach and the rule of thumb. So this revenue based approach takes your firm's annual gross revenue and multiplies it by a certain number, known as the multiplier. Now, the multiplier, the way you choose the multiplier is actually you base that number on your firm's projected ability to maintain or increase those revenues in the future. Okay, so this is why this rule is also known as the law firm valuation rule of thumb. Okay, and the multiplier tends to be in the range of zero point 0.5 to 3.0, with wide variations based on various factors. So especially if you are trying to really, if you have a very competitive niche, I would say. Next, you have the discounted cash flow. So unlike the rule of thumb method, which is based on past performance, the discounted cash flow approach is based on future performance. Okay, so using your law firm's estimated future cash flows and an expected rate of return for a buyer, you determine the terminal value after a set period of time. then this value and the cash flows are discounted to their present value. So this valuation method is often considered superior, if you think about it, to an approach based on past revenue because it is forward looking. Okay, it's forward looking. One disadvantage is that the future projections could be inaccurate, right? We're talking here about projections. So, and in addition, this method will miss important factors for some law firms, such as unique practice areas or client bases. If you are thinking about the law firm valuation, I also want you to think about market comparison approach. This is an important another valuation method. And so when you think about the market comparison, basically this involves researching recent sales of firms comparable to yours or the one you are seeking to acquire and using that info to determine fair market value, right? So this is similar to the use of comps in real estate transactions. So one glaring drawback of this approach is that if you think about it, information on law firm sales is often confidential, right? And not publicly available. I mean, you got to really dig a little deeper. You got to have some intel to know what's really happening in the industry. In addition, it can be really difficult to find, let's say, a comparable firm when each legal practice has so many unique characteristics, right? Nonetheless, the info, if available, can be used in conjunction with the other methods to help determine, I would say, a fair value. You also have the possibility of using multiple methods of valuation, right? There is no rule mandating that a singular method of law firm valuation must be chosen. I mean, you can use multiple valuation, okay, to find your practice's value. I mean, every practice is unique, and I'm sure that yours is unique too, which means what? It means that different methods could actually be assigned using different weighting depending on the firm's distinctives. I would say distinctive characteristics. It's all about your industry. It's all about your specific your firm specifics. Okay, and you can also use an asset-based approach. That's the fifth approach. So this approach is based on the firm's assets and liabilities. So after calculating the total value of the firm's assets, you want to subtract the firm's liabilities to yield the net value. And the firm's assets include tangible items such as property holdings and office furnitures, but also intangible assets such as goodwill and the firm's existing client base. This is really an important. So assets minus liability. If you have your assets minus liabilities, you have the net value. So I'm going to. If you have any question about all the five I would say methods that I just explained to you, let me know in the comment section, and I'll certainly explain more because this can be a little confusing, especially if you're not an accounting expert. Let me dig a little deeper in terms of the rule of thumb in law firm valuation. So if you want to value your law firm and you want to use the rule of thumb, you just need to understand that it has to actually be fair market value, right? So the rule of thumb method for law firm valuation actually is based on the firm's annual gross revenue. So annual gross revenue, okay, multiplied by a chosen factor. So and I want to really insist on that quote unquote chosen factor because you can't just randomly choose that factor. I mean, of course, you got to come up with a number that makes sense. Okay, so the commonly used multiplier in the legal field is in the range. I think I've said this before. You have is in the range of 0.5 to 3.0. So like 3.0, 3x, and 0.5, 0.5x. Okay. Now you're gonna see that as you start your law firm valuation, that you have some valuation experts actually recommending a lower, I would say a narrower range for you. Okay. So what happens here is that often the annual gross revenue is averaged over several years, with a 5 year the time period being common. So now, what happens if your law firm is not 5 years old yet? Then you can't really use a 5 year. You can use maybe 3 years or 4 years. It really depends. It really depends. It depends on a few factors. Now, the multiplier is actually that multiplier factor that I just spoke about, like 0.5 to 3.0, is actually chosen based on the firm's projected liability, projected ability, not liability, ability to maintain or increase those revenues in the future. Remember, when you choose your 5 year period or 3 year period, you gotta choose a factor that can really relate to your firm's ability to maintain or increase those revenues in the future. This can be judged by factors such as your firm's practice area, geographic location, or number of clients. Okay, and you also want to evaluate the amount of repeat business from clients and the transferability of those clients to a new owner. So, a firm whose reputation overly depends on the personal reputation of the previous owner may receive actually a lower multiplier because, of that uncertainty. So, if you think about it, the rule of thumb method has the advantage of being relatively straightforward and an excellent starting point, especially if you are just trying to really go straight to the point, like not really sort of navigate the complexities of accounting or even legal valuation. Okay, so the difficulty comes in selecting law firm valuation multipliers because every firm's situation is so unique, right? So something to really think about. In addition, a law firm's revenue in past years may not be a good indicator of value, especially where there is good reason to believe revenues will drastically increase or decrease in future years. So I want to show you on the screen, and because I want to go step by step, I want to show you a rule of thumb method calculation example. The reason why I'm actually sort of emphasizing the rule of thumb method is that you don't really need any expert to kind of help you out. You don't need an expert to really show you how to value your law firm using the rule of thumb method. You can do it yourself. You just need to have access to your firm's revenue data for the last 3 to 5 years, or even 10 years if you want to go that long, and you use a certain strategy that I'm going to show you. So let's say your law firm has an annual gross revenue of $1 million over the last 5 years. Okay, so we're speaking about annual gross revenue. So every single year for the last 5 years, your law firm actually has generated $1 million. Okay, that's gross revenue. So to use the rule of thumb method, you would take this average annual gross revenue and multiply it by the valuation multiplier, typically between 0.5 again and 3. So on the low end valuation, you have a multiplier of 0.5. So you have 0.5x so basically I'm showing you on the screen here. The low end valuation multiplier 0.5. So the valuation is actually $1 million times 0.5. So you are netting $500,000. So your law firm on the low end valuation will be worth $500,000. So that's for the low end valuation. Okay. Now I want to move to the high end valuation. So on the high end valuation, we have a multiplier of 3. So you have a 3x. So the valuation in this case will be logically 1 million times 3. So that's 3 million. So on the high end, your law firm will be worth 3 million. So what happens here is that if using this a very simple calculation, this gives your law firm a valuation range of $500,000 to $3 million based on the rule of thumb method. Okay, so this is something to really think about. Now, the multiplier is derived from industry norms, market conditions, and firm-specific factors like profitability, client base, reputation, and growth potential. Okay, so this is something to really think about. Now, for law firms, multiplier often range between those two numbers, 0.5 to 3. Okay, because smaller or less profitable firms may want to actually choose a lower multiplier, but larger, more profitable or niche specialized firms may justify higher multiplier. So if your law firm happens to be in a niche specialized, I will say industry, and you think that there is a potential, you're probably having like you're having I would say a pretty loyal clients. You can go with a valuation of a 2 or 2.5 or even 3. So if you think about valuing your law firm this year, you got to really have a clear idea about the top factors affecting the valuations of law firms across the board. I'm not even talking about like your specific industry. Okay, I'm speaking about factors that really would affect your firms in this economy. Okay, doesn't matter if we're having an up or down economy. Okay, so first thing first, the financial health of your law firm, the financial health of the firm is going to be very important. Okay, so basically, I'm speaking about total revenue and profits. Okay, those are key considerations, as well as growth in those areas. It's not just about the revenue that your law firm is actually generating or the profits. It's also the growth potential. How much percentage, how much percent are we thinking about the growth? Okay. So also, how large is your firm's client base? How in demand are its practice areas? You also want to look at other prospects for your firm's future. This includes analyzing your firm's competitors in the same practice areas. Multiply revenue streams can also help a firm weather rough patches and increase market share down the line. So that's an important element. You also have goodwill. So that's the second factor. So number one, financial health of the firm, right? So we're pretty clear about that. Number two, you have goodwill. So now goodwill in business accounting refers to the portion of a business's value above and beyond the asset-based calculation of assets minus liabilities. So for a law firm, this will generally refer to the practice's brand and reputation. So while difficult to measure, it is actually a goodwill is actually critical for a law firm valuation, especially since the asset-based approach is so inadequate. So you want to actually be clear about that. Okay, now I want to show you on the screen here. There is a difference between practice goodwill and personal goodwill. So personal goodwill applies to individual lawyers, whereas practice goodwill extends to the firm as a whole. So if even if some lawyers leave the practice, you still have your practice goodwill actually pretty strong. Okay, so if the firm's success depends on the personal goodwill of the lawyer selling the firm, then the firm will be worth less once the lawyer is gone. This means practice goodwill is more important for evaluation. You also have the ability to understand that you need to overcome valuation challenges. So there are common challenges in law firm valuation that you must anticipate and overcome, right? And there is inherent subjectivity in valuing intangible assets such as goodwill. So evaluating a future earning potential will also require some degree of speculation when you really think about it. So I want to talk to you before closing to this conversation. If you are thinking about valuing your law firm, there are ways to actually maximize your law firm value. Okay, one thing you need to really understand is that your data, your client's data, your personal data, not your business data, is really critical because basically, if when it comes to actually selling your law firm, your data, your content, your processes, your in-house, I would say processes are going to be important because they're going to tell the buyer that you have a pretty tight organization. Okay, so an organized firm with a solid tech stack for efficiency, productivity, and overall organization will be more than a paper-based practice in the eyes of a purchaser, right? This also shows that you are willing to do all that you can to increase your firm's profitability and efficiency while also building a strong client base. Okay. So one thing I want to say also is that when it comes to law firm valuation in general, you have to understand this is a process where you have to be proactive. In other words, if you want to value a law firm directly or indirectly, you are thinking about increasing the law firm's value. So increasing your law firm value just means that you have to increase not just revenue. You just increasing not just the firm's brand, reputation, and so on and so forth. But whenever you can, you also need to work on the personal goodwill of your lawyers, especially your star lawyers. Now, This strategy is a little risky in the sense that if your star lawyers leave the firm, your firm could actually lose, some value. But at least while they are there, that you might as well use their reputation to your advantage, to your firm's advantage, okay, to actually bring up the overall value of your law firm. So as a coda in today's conversation, I spoke to you about how to value a law firm. I explained what law firm valuation is, why is it important, the law firm valuation methods to really pay attention to, and I just talked a little bit about how to maximize law firm value. Thank you so much. God bless you. I will see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.